48 hours had passed since the Vaxil arrived. The colony was dying. Commander Hana stood in the operations center, surrounded by damaged consoles and exhausted officers. The screens showed a nightmare. The outer sectors were gone, torn apart by relentless Vaxil attacks. The shields were failing, dropping to 20%. Red alerts flashed everywhere. Casualties? Hana asked, though she dreaded the answer. Dr. Bora's face appeared on screen. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. 2,000 injured, 400 dead. Her voice was hoarse. And that's just what we've counted so far. Hana closed her eyes briefly. 400 people. She had known many of them, had shared meals with them, had promised their families she would keep them safe. How much longer can we hold? Administrator Dohyun asked from his position in the core shelter. Hana looked at the tactical display. The Vaxil were everywhere now, surrounding the colony completely. No escape routes left. 24 hours, maybe less. The communication line went quiet. Everyone understood what that meant. One more day, then the shields would fail completely. Then the Vaxil would tear through the colony like paper. In the engineering section, Taeyang slumped against a wall. His team had been working non-stop to keep the shields functioning. They had rerouted power from life support, diverted energy from the mining equipment, stripped every spare joule from non-essential systems. It wasn't enough. Taeyang, we're losing grid 3, his assistant called out. Taeyang forced himself to stand. Bypass it through grid 5. An explosion rocked the corridor. Alarms shrieked. A Vaxil projectile had penetrated the outer hull. Atmosphere rushed out through the breach until emergency doors slammed shut. Sir, we've lost contact with Maintenance Bay 7, someone reported. Taeyang felt sick. 3 people worked in Bay 7.
He had talked to them this morning.
Now they were gone. He grabbed his tools. Keep the shields up. I don't care how. Just do it. Far above the colony in the cold darkness of space, something impossible was happening. Captain Minju stood on the bridge of the UESS Indomitable, staring at the navigation display. Her ship was a monster. The newest and most powerful warship humanity had ever built. 2 kilometers of armor and weapons, experimental engines, prototype shields. It had been designed to fight entire fleets, but it had never been tested in real combat. Until now. Captain, we're reading massive energy signatures ahead, Navigator Hyun reported. Consistent with Vaxil bioships. Thousands of them. Minju nodded. They had received Gyeongsan Colony's distress call 4 hours ago. 4 hours. Normally the journey would take 9 days. But the Indomitable had something special. Something dangerous. Status of the slipstream drive? The chief engineer's voice came through the speakers, uncertain. Captain, I have to advise against using it. We've never tested it at this distance. The ship could tear itself apart. If we don't use it, 47,000 people die, Minju said flatly. Prep the drive. Hyun turned in his seat. Captain, we could die. Minju met his eyes. They're already dying. We're their only chance. Prep the drive. The bridge crew moved with practiced efficiency, though Minju could see the fear in their movements. The slipstream drive was experimental. It punched through reality itself, cutting travel time to almost nothing. The scientists had said it needed more testing, more calculations, more time. But time was the one thing the colony didn't have. Drive is ready, the engineer reported. May God have mercy on us. He will or he won't, Minju said. Engage, the Indomitable shuddered. Reality twisted. The ship stretched and compressed simultaneously, existing in multiple places at once. The crew felt their bodies pull in impossible directions. Some screamed. Others prayed. Then they were through. Back at Gyeongsan Colony, the battle had reached its desperate final stage. The Vaxil had breached the inner perimeter. Their bioships pressed close to the colony's hull, firing at point-blank range. The shields flickered and died in sections, exposing the colony to direct attack. Commander Hana watched helplessly as warnings filled every screen. All personnel to core sectors. Seal every bulkhead. This is our last line. In the medical bay, Bora worked frantically as wounded poured in. Her staff moved between patients, doing what they could with dwindling supplies. Screams echoed through the corridors. The sounds of people dying. Doctor, we're out of medical gel, a nurse called out. Use the emergency stores, Bora ordered. We already did. Bora felt despair creeping in. They were out of time, out of supplies, out of options. In the core shelter, families held each other. Parents covered their children's ears against the sounds of battle. The colony shook continuously now as Vaxil weapons hammered the hull. Metal groaned under the strain. Support beams buckled. Dohyun moved through the crowds trying to maintain order, but he could see the truth in their faces. They had given up hope. They were just waiting for the end. Tae Yang was in the operations center when the sensors went crazy. "Commander," he shouted. "I'm reading an energy signature, massive, coming in fast." Hana rushed to his console. "The Vaxil? No, it's different. Not biological." "It's..." Tae Yang's eyes went wide. "It's moving faster than light. Inside normal space. That's impossible." Every sensor on the colony focused on the approaching signature. The Vaxil seemed confused, their coordinated attacks faltering as they detected the anomaly. Then reality screamed. Space itself tore open. A rift of pure energy appeared, bleeding light into the darkness. The Vaxil swarm recoiled, their bioships scattering in confusion. Something was coming through. Something huge. The UESS Indomitable erupted into normal space with a sound that shouldn't exist in vacuum, but somehow it did. A deep resonating howl that echoed across every frequency, every radio, every communication system. A primal sound that spoke of fury and defiance. The warship was magnificent. Its hull gleamed with fresh armor. Weapon ports bristled along its length. Energy crackled around its shields. It dwarfed everything around it, making the Vaxil bioships look like insects. In the colony's operations center, silence fell. Everyone stared at the screens in disbelief. "Is that..." someone whispered. "A human warship," Hana breathed. "They came. They actually came." The communication systems crackled to life. A calm, steady voice filled the operations center. "Gyeongsan Colony, this is the UESS Indomitable. We heard you. Hold fast." Captain Minju stood on her bridge, surveying the battlefield through her screens. The Vaxil swarm was massive, easily 1,000 bioships. Her tactical officer, Junho, provided a quick analysis. "Captain, we're outnumbered approximately 1,000 to 1. Minju smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. "Then it's almost a fair fight. Weapons officer, target the nearest cluster. Show them why they should have stayed home." Junho's fingers flew across his console. "Targeting solutions locked. Plasma lances ready. Antimatter torpedoes armed." "Fire," Minju ordered. The Indomitable unleashed hell. Plasma lances, superheated to stellar temperatures, cut through the Vaxil formation like swords through flesh. Bioships exploded, their organic hulls unable to withstand the heat. Antimatter torpedoes followed, each one releasing apocalyptic energy upon impact. Entire sections of the Vaxil swarm simply ceased to exist. In 15 seconds, 300 Vaxil ships died. The swarm reacted immediately. They had expected an easy meal. Instead, they had found a predator. The Vaxil bioships turned as one, flowing toward the Indomitable with frightening speed. "Here they come," Hyan reported. "All of them." Minju watched the approaching swarm with cold calculation. "Good. Let's teach them about humanity. All ahead full. Take us into the thick of them." In the colony, people pressed against viewing windows and watched screens in amazement. The huge warship accelerated directly toward the Vaxil swarm, not retreating, not evading. Attacking. Commander Hana felt tears on her cheeks. She didn't try to wipe them away. "They're fighting for us. One ship against all of that." Taeyang pulled up the colony's weapon systems. "Commander, our defensive batteries are still operational. We can help them." Hana grabbed her communication device. "Indomitable, this is Commander Hana. Our weapons are at your disposal. Tell us where to shoot." Minju's voice came back warm with approval. "Commander Hana, good to meet you. Target coordinates incoming. Let's show these things what happens when they attack humans." The colony's weapons came back online. Mining lasers designed to cut through asteroids now targeted Vaxil bioships. Missile batteries previously saving their last rounds now fired with renewed hope. The Indomitable dove into the swarm, weapons blazing from every port. It spun and weaved through the Vaxil formation with impossible grace for something so large. Behind it, bioships exploded in chain reactions. Ahead of it, the Vaxil scattered in confusion. On the colony, people began to cheer. In the medical bay, wounded soldiers smiled through their pain. In the core shelter, parents held their children and dared to believe they might survive. They had given up hope. But hope had come howling out of the void. The battle was won, but people were still dying. Dr. Bora moved through the Indomitable's medical bay like a woman possessed. The warship's doctors had done their best, but they were overwhelmed. When Commander Hana offered to send medical teams from the colony, Bora had accepted immediately. Now she worked alongside the ship's medical staff, treating injuries that made her want to scream. Burns from plasma fires, decompression damage, radiation exposure, wounds from structural collapses. The list went on and on. "Doctor, this one isn't going to make it," a nurse said quietly, gesturing to a young crew member on a table. The injuries were too severe. Bora looked at the readings and felt her heart sink. The nurse was right. But she had learned long ago that you never give up. Not while there was still a chance. "Prep him for emergency surgery," she ordered. "We're not losing anyone else today." The surgery took 2 hours. It was delicate work, repairing internal damage while the patient's body fought against her. But Bora had been doing this for 30 years. Her hands were steady. Her focus was absolute. When the patient's vital signs stabilized, the nurse looked at her with something like awe. "How did you practice?" Bora said simply. "And stubbornness. Now who's next?" Throughout the warship, similar scenes played out. Engineers worked in damaged sections, breathing through emergency masks as they welded hull plates and rerouted power conduits. Marines searched through collapsed corridors, looking for survivors trapped in the debris. And on the bridge, Captain Minju faced a new problem. "Captain, we have a situation," Navigator Hyon reported. His voice was tight with tension. "The singularity cannon. When we fired it at partial charge, it damaged the containment systems. The miniature black hole didn't fully collapse." Minju felt cold fear grip her chest. "Explain." "There's a tiny, unstable singularity still active inside the weapon housing. It's microscopic, but it's growing. Slowly. If we don't contain it, it will eventually consume the ship." "How long do we have?" Jan checked his calculations. 4 hours. Maybe 5. Minju looked around the bridge. Her crew was exhausted. The ship was crippled, and now they had a miniature black hole eating them from the inside. She wanted to laugh or scream. Or both. "Get me Chief Engineer Wusung," she ordered. Wusung appeared on the screen moments later. He looked like he hadn't slept in a week, which was probably accurate. "Captain, I know about the singularity. I'm already working on a solution. Tell me you have one." "I might," Wusung said carefully. "The weapons containment system is damaged, but the emergency containment system is still functional. If we can transfer the singularity to emergency containment, we can stabilize it long enough to properly collapse it." But what?" Minju asked, dreading the answer. "Someone has to do it manually. The automated systems are offline, and the person doing it will be exposed to massive radiation. Even with protective gear, it's lethal," Minju finished. "I understand. I'll do it myself." "Captain, no," Weapons Officer Junho protested. "You're too important." "I'll go." "So are you," Minju said firmly. "This ship needs its weapons officer." "I'm going." Before anyone could argue further, a new voice came over the communication system. It was young. Determined. "Captain, this is Private Soman. I volunteer for the containment mission." Minju pulled up Soman's file. 23 years old. Just finished basic training 6 months ago. This was her first assignment. "Private, you don't have to—" "Yes, I do," Soman interrupted. "Sir, I've been trained in emergency containment procedures." "And you're right. The ship needs you. It needs all its senior officers. But it doesn't need me. Not like it needs you." "Soman, the radiation exposure," Minju started. "I know," Soman said quietly. "I understand what I'm volunteering for. But this crew saved my life today. The colony saved my life. I want to give something back. Please, Captain. Let me do this." Minju closed her eyes. She had been a captain for 5 years. She had made hundreds of difficult decisions. But this one hurt more than most. She was about to send a young woman to her death. But Soman was right. The ship needed its experienced crew, and someone had to stop the singularity. "Permission granted, Private. Report to Engineering Section 12. Wusung will brief you on the procedure." "Thank you, Captain. It's been an honor serving with you." The communication cut off. On the bridge, silence fell. Junior looked at Minju with anguish in his eyes. "Captain, she's just a kid." "I know," Minju said softly. "But she's also a Marine, and she made her choice." In Engineering Section 12, Soman put on the heavy radiation suit. Wusung helped her seal it properly, checking every connection twice. His hand shook slightly as he worked. "You don't have to do this," he said quietly. "We could find another way." "There isn't time," Soman replied. She tried to sound brave. It almost worked. "Just tell me what to do." Wusung walked her through the procedure. It was technically simple. Enter the weapon housing through the maintenance hatch. Manually activate the emergency containment field. Transfer the singularity. Exit before the radiation killed her, except the last part was impossible. The radiation levels inside the housing were already lethal. She would be dead within minutes of exposure even with the suit. "I'm sorry," Wusung said. He had tears in his eyes. "Don't be," Somin said. She put her helmet on. "I get to save the ship. That's more than most people can say. Tell my family I was brave, okay?" She entered the maintenance hatch before he could respond. Inside the weapon housing was like being inside a furnace. The radiation suit's sensors screamed warnings. The singularity was visible as a tiny point of absolute darkness, surrounded by distorted space. It was beautiful and terrifying. Soman moved carefully, following Wusung's instructions exactly. Her hands worked the manual controls, activating the emergency containment system. The field generators hummed to life, their energy visible as a blue glow around the singularity. "Containment field active," she reported. Her voice was steady. "Beginning transfer sequence." On the bridge, Minju watched the readings. The singularity was being moved into the emergency housing. Slowly, carefully, it was working. But Soman's vital signs were dropping rapidly. The radiation was killing her. "Somin, how are you doing?" Minju asked gently. "Honestly, Captain, I've felt better." Soman laughed, but it turned into a cough. "Transfer is at 80%, 90, almost there." Throughout the ship, people stopped what they were doing to listen. They heard this young private, barely more than a kid, calmly reporting her progress as she died. Some prayed, others wept, but everyone listened. "Transfer complete," Soman reported. Her voice was weaker now. "Singularity is contained. You're safe." "Soman, get out of there," Minju ordered. "Now." "I don't think I can, Captain. I can't feel my legs, and my vision is getting dark. I think—" She paused. "I'm sorry. I wanted to see home again." "You saved us," Minju said. Her voice broke. "You saved all of us. That's not nothing, Private. That's everything. Thank you, Captain. Tell everyone, tell them I'm glad I was here. Glad I could help." Soman's vital signs flatlined. The communication went silent. On the bridge, Minju stood alone with her grief. She had lost 312 crew members today. 13. Now it was 313. Each one was a name, a face, a person who had trusted her to bring them home safely. "Captain," Hyun said quietly, "the singularity is stable. We can collapse it safely now." Soman succeeded. "I know," Minju said. She straightened her shoulders. "Collapse the singularity. Then I want a full casualty report. Every name, every rank. They deserve to be remembered." In the colony's medical bay, Dr. Bora finally sat down. She had been working for 6 hours straight without a break. Around her, the wounded were stable. The critical cases had been handled. People would live who should have died. "Doctor," a nurse approached. "We just got word from the Indomitable. A private named Soman died stopping a containment breach. She saved the ship." Bora closed her eyes. Another death. Another person who should have lived. She was so tired of counting the dead, but Soman had saved thousands. That had to mean something. On the colony's observation deck, civilians gathered to look at the Indomitable. The warship hung in space, battered but unbroken. It was scarred and damaged, but it was still there, still protecting them. A woman named Yunji stood with her daughter looking at the ship. During the battle, when Vaxil drones had breached the core shelter, Yunji had picked up a weapon. She had never fired a gun before, but she had defended her child. She had fought alongside the Marines and survived. "Mama, are the bad things gone?" her daughter asked. "Yes, baby. The bad things are gone. The ship saved us. Will they stay?" Yunji looked at the damaged warship. "I think they'll need to leave soon. They need repairs, but they'll come back if we need them. That's what they do." In the Indomitable's hangar bay, Marine Commander Ji-won gathered her remaining troops. They stood at attention, exhausted but proud. She had led them through impossible odds. They had boarded an enemy ship, destroyed a coordination node, and survived. But not all of them. 6 Marines had died in that mission. Good soldiers. Good people. "We lost Marines today," Ji-won said. Her voice carried across the silent bay. We lost Soman. We lost hundreds of crew members. But we saved 47,000 civilians. We stopped the Vaxil. We showed them what happens when they threaten humans. So stand tall. You earned it, the Marines saluted. The Indomitable turned to face the Swarm Queen. Every weapon on the warship locked onto the massive. The Swarm Queen filled the viewing screens of the Indomitable's bridge. She was beautiful in a terrible way, like a natural disaster or a deadly predator. Her bioship pulsed with energy, weapon ports glowing with building power. Captain Minju studied her enemy with cold calculation. Junho analysis. The weapons officer worked quickly, pulling data from their sensors. She's heavily armored. Our plasma lances might scratch her, but nothing more. The singularity cannon is still recharging, won't be ready for another 10 minutes. We don't have 10 minutes, Navigator Hyon said quietly. He pointed at the screen. She's charging weapons. Multiple targets. She's going to hit both us and the colony simultaneously. Minju felt ice in her stomach. A coordinated strike. The Queen was smart enough to know they would try to shield the colony. So she would force them to choose. Protect themselves or protect 47,000 civilians. There was no choice at all, really. Hyon put us between the Queen and the colony. Full speed. Captain, Hyun started to protest. Do it, Minju said firmly. We're the shield now. The Indomitable accelerated, positioning itself directly in the line of fire. On the colony, Commander Hana watched in horror as she realized what the warship was doing. They're going to take the hit for us, she whispered. Taeyang looked up from his console. Their shields are already damaged. A direct strike from something that size. They know, Hana interrupted. They know, and they're doing it anyway. In the Indomitable's engineering section, Chief Engineer Wu Sung rerouted every bit of available power to the forward shields. Come on, he muttered to the ship. Just a little more. Hold together. Around him, his engineering crew worked frantically. They reinforced shield generators, bypassed damage systems, and prepared for impact. They all knew what was coming. The whole ship knew. Down in the medical bay, doctors and nurses prepared for mass casualties. They set up triage stations, loaded medical supplies, and tried not to think about whether they would survive long enough to use them. Marine Commander Jiwon had just returned from the boarding mission. Her strike team was battered but alive. She watched the Queen on a wall screen and understood immediately what was about to happen. All Marines, brace positions, she ordered over the squad channel. Secure anything that can move. This is going to be bad. Private Salmon strapped herself into her seat in the Marine Bay. Her hands shook. She had survived the boarding mission, killed her first enemy, seen her fellow Marines die. And now this. She closed her eyes and thought of home. The Swarm Queen fired. Massive energy beams lanced out from her hull, followed by swarms of organic missiles. The weapons moved at impossible speed, crossing the distance in seconds. They slammed into the Indomitable's forward shields with the force of a dying star. The warship's shields flared brilliant white, absorbing energies that could melt planets. For 3 seconds they held. Then they failed. The Queen's weapons punched through the shields and struck the hull directly. Armor plating, designed to withstand anything, buckled and tore. Explosions ripped through interior decks. Compartments vented into space. People died, torn apart by the forces unleashed against them. On the bridge, Minju was thrown from her chair. Consoles exploded in showers of sparks. The lights went out, replaced by emergency red lighting. Alarms screamed from every direction. Damage report, she shouted over the chaos. It took a moment for anyone to respond. Finally, Woo-sung's voice came through, strained and weak. Hull breaches on 37 decks. We've lost main power, running on emergency systems. Casualties are significant. Minju pulled herself up, ignoring the pain in her ribs. Weapons? Still operational, Junho reported. His console was cracked but functioning. But we don't have enough power for another full strike. Then we use what we have, Minju said. She looked at the tactical display. The Queen was advancing, preparing for another attack. Target her weapon ports. If we can't kill her, we'll blind her. The Indomitable's remaining weapons came online. They fired in a concentrated barrage, targeting specific points on the Queen's hull. Explosions rippled across her bioship. Some of her weapons went dark, damaged beyond use. The Queen screamed. It was a sound that shouldn't exist in space, but somehow it did. A shriek of rage and pain that echoed across all frequencies. She changed tactics, accelerating directly toward the Indomitable. She was going to ram them. On the colony, Taeyang stared at his sensors in disbelief. "Commander, the Queen is on a collision course with the Indomitable. If they impact at that speed, both ships will be destroyed," Hana finished. She grabbed the communication system. "Minju, get out of there! Evade!" Minju's voice came back, surprisingly calm. "Can't evade, Commander. Our engines are damaged. We're not moving fast enough." Hana felt her heart break. "There has to be something." "Oh, there is," Minju interrupted. "We can still fight. And while we do, your people stay alive. That's worth it." The communication cut off. Hana stood frozen, watching the inevitable collision approach on her screens. The Indomitable had come to save them. Now it was going to die for them. But Taeyang was staring at his console with sudden intensity. "Commander, I have an idea. The Queen, she's using some kind of resonance frequency to coordinate her attacks. I've been analyzing it. If we could jam that frequency, she would lose coordination just like the swarm did," Hana finished. "Can you do it?" "Maybe. But the jamming signal has to be broadcast from inside the Vaxil formation. Someone would have to get very close." Hana looked at their remaining patrol ship. Just one left out of 3. And it was damaged, held together by emergency repairs. "Prep the patrol ship. I'll pilot it myself." "Commander, that's suicide," Taeyang protested. "So is sitting here watching them die," Hana shot back. She activated the colony-wide channel. "This is Commander Hana. I need volunteers for a dangerous mission. Anyone with pilot experience, meet me at Launch Bay 3 now." She didn't wait for responses. She ran toward the launch bay, her mind focused on a single goal. The Indomitable had sacrificed itself for them. Now it was their turn to return the favor. On the Indomitable, the crew prepared for the end. Some prayed. Some wrote final messages to loved ones. Some just held each other, but they didn't stop working. Even facing death, they kept fighting. Wusung's engineering team worked miracles, keeping damaged systems running through sheer determination. Jiwon's Marines reinforced damaged sections of the hull, welding plates and sealing breaches while under fire from Vaxil ships. The medical teams treated hundreds of wounded, performing surgery in corridors because the medical bay was too damaged. Captain Minju stood on her bridge, watching the Queen approach. She had done everything she could. The colony was safe. Her crew had fought with courage and skill. If this was the end, it was an end worth having. "Captain," Junho said quietly. "It's been an honor," Minju smiled. "The honor was mine, weapons officer. All batteries, continuous fire. Let's make these last shots count." The Indomitable fired everything it had left. Missiles, plasma lances, railgun rounds. Every weapon that could still function poured fire into the IE, approaching Queen. The massive bioship shuddered under the assault but kept coming. Then Hana's patrol ship shot out from the colony. It was small and damaged, but it moved with desperate speed. Taeyang had mounted the jamming equipment in its cargo bay. The ship dove into the Vaxil formation, dodging bioships that tried to intercept it. "Hana, what are you doing?" Minju demanded over the communication channel. "Saving you," Hana replied simply. "Taeyang, activate the jammer." The jamming signal burst out from the patrol ship, filling space with disrupting frequencies. The effect on the Vaxil was immediate and dramatic. The remaining swarm ships stopped their coordinated attacks. They flew erratically, confused and disoriented, but more importantly, the Queen lost her targeting coordination. Her weapons, primed to fire at the Indomitable, fired wildly instead. Some shots missed completely. Others hit her own swarm ships by mistake. The Queen tried to adjust to compensate for the jamming, but it was too late. She had committed to the ramming course and couldn't change direction fast enough. She was going to miss the Indomitable by a few hundred meters. Minju saw the opening immediately. "Junho, the singularity cannon. Tell me it's ready." "Almost," Junho said, his voice tight with concentration. 90% charged, 95, Captain, it's not fully charged. If we fire now, the effect will be unpredictable." "Unpredictable is better than nothing," Minju said. "Fire the moment you can." The seconds stretched out. The Queen flew past the Indomitable, so close that the two ships almost touched. For a moment, both vessels hung in space, silent and still. Then Junho fired. The partially charged singularity cannon released its payload. The miniature black hole was smaller than intended, less stable, but it was enough. It caught the Queen's aft section, right where her engines were located. The Queen's bioship began to tear itself apart. Her own momentum, combined with the gravitational forces, ripped her hull open. Internal explosions lit up her structure. She tried to compensate, tried to survive, but the damage was too severe. With a final silent scream across all frequencies, the Swarm Queen died. Her ship broke into pieces, scattering across space. The remaining Vaxil swarm already confused by the jammin. The alarm screamed through every corridor of Gyeongsan Colony. Commander Hana ran toward the operations center, her boots pounding against the metal floor. She had been a soldier for 23 years, but her hands still shook when she heard that particular sound. It meant only one thing. They were under attack. The operations center was chaos. Screens flashed red warnings. Officers shouted coordinates and status reports. Through the massive viewing window, Hana could see them. The enemy. Thousands of dark shapes moved against the stars like a swarm of insects. They were called the Vaxil, and they ate worlds. How long until they reach us? Hana demanded. Young Taeyang looked up from his console. His face was pale. 3 hours. Maybe 4 if we're lucky. Hana felt her stomach drop. She had hoped for days. Time to evacuate. Time to prepare. 3 hours was nothing. Get me Administrator Do-hyun, she ordered. The screen flickered to life. Do-hyun appeared, already in motion, evacuating civilians from the outer sectors. Tell me you have good news, Hana. We don't have much time, Hana said. The Vaxil will be in weapons range soon. I need you to move everyone to the core shelters now. Do-hyun's jaw tightened. All 47,000 people? That's impossible in 3 hours. Make it possible, Hana said. Or they'll die where they stand. She cut the connection and turned to her tactical officer. Launch our patrol ships. Every single one. The officer hesitated. Commander, we only have 3 ships. They're old cargo escorts. Against that swarm, I know, Hana interrupted. But we buy time with whatever we have. Launch them. The colony shuddered as the patrol ships lifted from their bays. Hana watched them accelerate toward the approaching darkness. 3 tiny lights against an ocean of enemies. She knew most of those pilots personally. Knew their families. Knew they probably wouldn't come back. Taeyang appeared at her side. Commander, the quantum relay is damaged. Hana spun to face him. What? The distress signal. I don't know if it got through. His voice cracked. We might be screaming into empty space. For a moment, Hana couldn't breathe. The distress beacon was their only hope. The nearest military base was 9 days away at maximum speed. If the signal hadn't reached them, if no one knew they were dying out here, she forced herself to think. Can you repair it? Taeyang nodded quickly. Maybe, I'll need time. You have 3 hours, Hana said. Make it count. He ran from the operations center. Hana turned back to the screens. The first exchange of fire had begun. Brilliant flashes lit up the void as the patrol ships engaged the Vaxil. Energy weapons cut through space. The Vaxil bioships responded with organic projectiles that moved like living things. One of the patrol ships exploded, just gone. A bright flash and then nothing. 2 ships remaining, the tactical officer reported quietly. The Vaxil kept coming. They didn't slow down. Didn't hesitate. They flowed around the surviving patrol ships like water around stones. Nothing stopped them. In the medical bay, Dr. Bora prepared for the worst. She organized her staff, set up triage stations, and tried not to think about how many beds they had versus how many people lived in the colony. The math didn't work. It never did in situations like this. Doctor, the emergency shelters are filling up, a nurse reported. People are scared. They should be, Bora muttered. She raised her voice. Make sure everyone knows the protocols. When the attack starts, we won't have time for explanations. The colony shook again, closer this time. The Vaxil were testing their shields. In the core shelter, families huddled together. Parents held children. The elderly sat in quiet resignation. They had all heard the stories about the Vaxil. Everyone had. Entire colonies wiped out, planets stripped clean. The Vaxil didn't negotiate, didn't take prisoners. They consumed everything and moved on. Do-hyun moved through the crowds, trying to project calm he didn't feel. Stay together, he called out. Follow the wardens. Everyone will have a space. A woman grabbed his arm. Is it true? Are the Vaxil really here? Do-hyun met her eyes. He could have lied. Should have, maybe. But these people deserve the truth. Yes, but our defenses are strong. We'll hold them off. The woman nodded slowly. She didn't believe him. He could see it in her face. But she appreciated the effort. Back in the operations center, Hana watched the Vaxil formation. They moved with disturbing intelligence, not like a fleet with commanders and orders, like a single living thing with thousands of parts. When the patrol ships attacked one section, another section would flow in behind them, surrounding, trapping. The second patrol ship died, its hull cracked open by a cluster of Vaxil projectiles. One ship left, the tactical officer said. His voice had gone flat, emotionless. The only way to deal with watching friends die. Bring it back, Hana ordered. We need every weapon for the final defense. The last patrol ship turned and raced back toward the colony. The Vaxil pursued, sensing weakness. They move faster now, eager. Shields at maximum, Hana commanded. All defensive batteries online. When they come in range, hit them with everything. The colony's weapons were designed to stop asteroids and small raiders. Not a full Vaxil swarm, but they were all Hana had. Deep in the engineering section, Taeyang worked frantically on the quantum relay. His team tore apart panels and rerouted power conduits. The relay had been hit by debris during the initial attack. The damage was severe. Can we fix it? His assistant asked. We have to, Taeyang said. He didn't look up from his work. His hands moved with desperate precision. One wrong connection and the whole system could overload. Minutes passed. The colony shook repeatedly as Vaxil weapons began hammering the shields. Red emergency lights flickered on. The power grid struggled under the strain. Got it, Taeyang shouted. The relay hummed back to life. Boosting the signal now. Maximum power. The distress call screamed out into space, a desperate plea for help. But space was vast and empty, and help was so very far away. On the operations deck, Hana received Taeyang's report. The signal is transmitting, Commander. Full strength. Good work, Hana said. She looked at the tactical display. The Vaxil had reached the colony's defensive perimeter. All batteries opened fire. The colony's weapons blazed. Missiles and energy beams tore into the Vaxil formation. Ships exploded. Organic matter scattered into the void. For a moment, Hana felt a surge of hope. Then the Vaxil adjusted. They spread out, making themselves harder targets. They returned fire. The colony's shields flared bright under the assault. Shields holding at 70%, the tactical officer reported. Hana watched the numbers drop. 70 became 60. 60 became 50. The math was simple and brutal. Their shields would fail long before the Vaxil ran out of ships. How long can we hold? She asked quietly. The tactical officer checked his calculations.
72 hours.
Maybe less, 3 days. That's all they had. And help was 9 days away. Hana activated the colony-wide communication system. Every screen, every speaker, every personal device received her message. This is Commander Hana. I won't lie to you. We're in trouble. But we've sent out a distress call. Help is coming. We just need to hold on. Stay in the shelters. Follow the wardens. And have faith. We're not alone out here. She ended the transmission and looked at her officers. They stared back at her, waiting for orders. For hope. We dig in, Hana said firmly. We make them pay for every meter. And we trust that someone heard our call. Outside, in the frozen void, the Vaxil circled like predators. Patient. Relentless. They had all the time in the world. But somewhere in the darkness, racing faster than light itself, a human warship had heard the call, and it was coming. The space around Gyeongsan Colony had become a storm of fire and death. Captain Minju stood firm on the bridge of the Indomitable as the warship tore through the Vaxil swarm. Explosions flashed across the viewing screens. The ship's weapons fired continuously, each shot precisely calculated to maximize damage. But the Vaxil were learning. They're adapting, Weapons Officer Junho reported. Watch Sector 7. They're spreading out, making themselves harder to hit. Minju studied the tactical display. Hunyo was right. The Vaxil swarm intelligence was analyzing their attacks, finding patterns, adjusting. What had worked 5 minutes ago was already becoming less effective. They're smart, she admitted. Good, I prefer my enemies intelligent. It makes the victory sweeter. Hyun, take us through the orbital ring. Navigator Hyun looked up sharply. Captain, the ring is full of mining equipment and debris. At this speed, the Vaxil will have to follow us through it, Minju interrupted. They're bigger and less maneuverable. We'll use the environment against them. Hyun nodded and adjusted course. The Indomitable banked hard, diving toward the massive ring of ice and rock that orbited the colony's moon. The ship was huge, but Hyun flew it like a fighter craft weaving between chunks of frozen debris. Behind them, the Vaxil swarm pursued. Their bioships crashed into obstacles, exploding in bursts of organic matter. The ring became a graveyard of broken vessels, but still they came, relentless and hungry. On the colony, Commander Hana coordinated the defense from the operations center. Her tactical display showed both the Indomitable's position and the Vaxil swarm. The two forces moved in a deadly dance. Taiyang, can you give me a firing solution on the Vaxil ships pursuing the Indomitable? The young engineer worked quickly. Yes, Commander. Sending coordinates now. Hana activated the colony's mining lasers. These massive tools designed to cut apart asteroids for processing now turned their power on the Vaxil. Beams of concentrated energy lanced out, catching bioships as they emerged from behind debris. The lasers cut them apart with surgical precision. Good shooting. Minju's voice came through the communication system. Keep it up, Commander. My pleasure, Captain, Hana replied. For the first time in 2 days, she felt something other than despair. She felt hope and anger. Deep inside the Indomitable, Marine Commander Ji-Wan prepared her strike force. 200 Marines in full combat armor stood ready in the launch bay. Their mission was insane, but Ji-Wan had never walked away from an insane mission before. Listen up, she addressed her troops. The captain has identified what she thinks is a Vaxil command vessel. A big one. We're going to board it, plant charges, and blow their coordination node to hell. Questions. A young private named Somin raised her hand. Commander, how do we get inside? Ji-Wan smiled behind her helmet. The old-fashioned way. We knock very loudly. Check your gear. We launch in 5 minutes. The Marines checked their weapons. Plasma rifles, explosives, close combat tools. Everything they would need to fight in the cramped confines of an alien bioship. The ship's AI, a tactical intelligence called Nabi, spoke through the intercom. Commander Ji-Wan, I have calculated your survival odds at approximately 12%. Thanks, Nabi, Ji-Wan said dryly. Really boosting morale here. You're welcome. However, I should note that my calculations don't account for human stubbornness. That variable tends to break my mathematical models. Several Marines laughed. Ji-Wan appreciated Nabi's attempt at humor, even if the AI probably didn't understand why it was funny. The Indomitable shuddered as a cluster of Vaxil projectiles struck the shields. The lights flickered but held. Chief Engineer Wusung's voice came over the speakers, strained but steady. Captain, the shields are holding, but we're taking damage. Hull breaches on decks 12 through 15. Sealing them now. Understood, Minju replied. She turned to Junho. Time to show them our experimental toys. Charge the singularity cannon. Junho's eyes widened. Captain, that weapon has never been fired outside of controlled tests. We know it works, Minju cut him off. And we know the Vaxil die when you shoot them. That's enough for me. Charge it. The singularity cannon began to power up. Deep in the ship's heart, massive capacitors drew energy from the reactor. The weapon would create a miniature black hole and fire it at the enemy. For 3 seconds, anything in its path would be pulled into oblivion. Then the black hole would collapse safely. Theoretically. The Vaxil seemed to sense something was coming. Their swarm began to pull back, creating distance. But Minju had anticipated this. Now, Ji-Wan, launch your strike team. In the launch bay, Ji-Wan felt the deck drop away as her boarding pod shot from the ship. 20 pods, each carrying 10 Marines, rocketed toward the Vaxil command vessel. They moved fast, too fast for the bioships to intercept. The ride was violent. The pods shook and spun as they dodged Vaxil fire. Selman gripped her rifle so hard her knuckles turned white. This was her first real combat mission. She had trained for years. But nothing prepared you for flying into an enemy warship full of hostile aliens. 30 seconds to impact, the pod's computer announced calmly. Ji-Wan activated the squad channel. Remember your training. Stay together. Watch your corners. And if you see the coordination node, you paint it with the beacon. The Indomitable will do the rest. The pod slammed into the Vaxil command vessel with tremendous force. Cutting torches burned through the organic hull. Marines poured through the breaches, weapons ready. Inside the bioship was like entering a nightmare. The walls were made of something that looked like flesh and bone. They pulsed with a slow organic rhythm. The air was thick and humid, filled with strange smells. Bioluminescent growths provided dim, sickly light. Move out, Ji-Wan ordered. Stay sharp. The Marines advanced through the ship's corridors. They moved in tight formation, covering each other. Every shadow could hide an enemy. Every corner could be a trap. They didn't have to wait long. The Vaxil defenders appeared suddenly, dropping from the ceiling and emerging from the walls. They were insect-like creatures, all sharp limbs and mandibles. They made clicking sounds as they charged. Contact! Zoman shouted and fired. Plasma rounds lit up the corridor. Vaxil creatures shrieked and fell. But more came. They kept coming. Back on the Indomitable, the Singularity cannon reached full charge. Target locked, Junho reported. The Vaxil are clustering around their command ship. It's like they're trying to protect something. They are, Minju said. Their queen. Fire. The Singularity cannon released its payload. A sphere of absolute darkness shot across space, moving slower than the other weapons but far more deadly. It touched the edge of the Vaxil formation and gravity went insane. Bioships were pulled toward the miniature black hole, unable to resist. They stretched and compressed, torn apart by forces no living thing could withstand. Dozens of ships disappeared into the darkness. Then dozens more. The black hole collapsed as designed, winking out of existence. But the damage was done. The Vaxil formation had a huge gap in it, and through that gap Minju could see it clearly now. The Swarm Queen. She was enormous. 3 times the size of the Indomitable. Her bioship was covered in armor plating that looked like it had grown naturally. Weapons sprouted from her hull like thorns. And she was moving. Coming directly at them. Well, Minju said quietly, there's the real fight. Inside the Vaxil command vessel, Jiwon's team had fought their way to the ship's core. Bodies of fallen Vaxil littered the corridors. Several Marines were wounded. One was dead, killed by a Vaxil that had gotten too close. There, Jiwon pointed. Ahead was a large chamber filled with strange technology. Organic computer systems, if that's what they were. Information flowed through them in visible pulses of light. This had to be the coordination node. Some plant the beacon. Everyone else, defensive perimeter. They're going to hit us hard now. Selman ran forward and attached the targeting beacon to the central structure. Her hands shook as she activated it. The beacon began transmitting, sending its location to the Indomitable. The Vaxil defenders attacked with desperate fury. They knew what the beacon meant. They threw themselves at the Marines without regard for their own lives. The corridor became a killing ground. Marines fell back step by step, firing continuously. On the colony, Administrator Do Hyun watched the battle on the screens. He had seen a lot in his diplomatic career, but nothing like this. The Indomitable fought against impossible odds. The Marines were trapped inside an enemy ship. The Vaxil Queen was advancing. Why aren't they retreating? Someone asked. Because we're still here, Do Hyun said quietly. They came to save us. They won't leave until the job is done. He thought about all the speeches he had given, all the promises he had made to these colonists. He had told them they were safe, that the galaxy was civilized, that humanity's military would protect them. For once, those promises were being kept. Commander Hana opened a channel to the Indomitable. Captain Minju, the Swarm Queen, is targeting the colony. If she fires, she won't get the chance, Minju interrupted. Her voice was calm, certain. Commander Hana, I need you to trust me. Can you do that? Hana looked at the tactical display. The Queen was massive, powerful. Their shields couldn't take a direct hit from something that size. I trust you, Hana said. Good. Get your people to the deepest shelters. This is going to get rough.